Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon sponsor Greg Adams. If you'd like to find out more about how to sponsor the podcast through Patreon, go to patreon.com/School of Laughs. That's patreon.com/School of Laughs. We're also today brought to you by the Clean Comedy Conference. Are you a comedian who's looking to get more paid bookings via corporate gigs, cruise ships, churches, colleges, or clubs? Are you wanting to perform or write for late-night TV? Then the Clean Comedy Conference is the conference for you. The conference will be taking place in San Diego, California, October 13th through the 15th. Early bird registration ends on August 15th, so sign up today at cleancomedyconference.com. As a special offer to School of Laughs listeners, use promo code School of Laughs to save $10. Again, go to cleancomedyconference.com today. And thanks for sponsoring the podcast.
Welcome to the School of Laughs podcast, brought to you by schooloflaughs.com. Whether you're an aspiring comedian, a part-time pro, or a speaker who wants to become funnier, this is the podcast for you. We'll break down tools, tips, and techniques to help you get bigger, better, and more bookable. And now, here's the show.
Welcome to the podcast. This is Rick Roberts. Thanks again to our sponsors, the Clean Comedy Conference, which I'll tell you more about at the end of this episode, and Greg Adams, who's supporting us through Patreon. If you are a Patreon sponsor and you're at that $7 a month contribution, I just wanted to remind you that this weekend on July 16th, that's Saturday, between 1 and 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, we're going to have our Google Hangout where we get to kind of mastermind our way around what we're doing in our comedy. And this particular weekend, we're going to be talking about really defining who we are on stage and using that information in our marketing materials. So make sure you join us for that if you are a Patreon sponsor at the $7 level. Okay, today's episode is really fun, and I will tell you right up front, at the beginning of the interview, the Skype call was a little bit turbulent, but it settles in nicely a few minutes into it, so stick with us. It will get better. And I recorded this on a stormy night, and the storm was really sending lightning bolts all around, and I thought, you know what, if I die going down doing the podcast, that's the way to go. So I did not get struck by lightning, but the Skype has a little bit of hiccups to it here and there. Most of that, though, I got ironed out. The interview is with Matt Ward, who is in charge of planning a couple of different festivals here in Tennessee. So if you've ever wondered what does it take and what are these guys looking for, man, he really lays it out for us. And I learned quite a few things on this podcast as well, including what kind of video to submit and specifically which platform to submit that video through, as well as should I monetize that submission video or not. Pretty funny answer there. Also, we talk about websites, basic website things you can do to make sure that if they do like you when they watch your clip, they can follow through and find out more about you. He goes into great detail about headshots and revealed a few things I wasn't even aware of, and that's going to change the way I approach things here in the near future with my next headshot. So lots of really good stuff in here. And he also talks about why you might not be selected for a comedy festival, even though you might be funnier than some people that are in the festival. Very interesting there. And I think something that's worth listening to, whether you're a aspiring comedian or somebody that's been doing it for a while. Very, very cool insight. So we're going to jump right now into the interview with Matt Ward. Again, a little wanky on the audio up front, but it does settle in. And all the information that he gives us, definitely worth listening to. So Matt Ward, how's it going, sir?
Excellent. Coming to you live from Huber Ridge in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, you recently moved there, huh? How's it going so far?
So far, so good. The biggest thrift stores you've ever seen, and traffic, real traffic.
Yeah, you were in Knoxville before, right?
Correct.
So Knoxville, it's kind of just east-west, and there's that little weird loop where you spin off to go to Lexington or keep on going to Bristol.
Pretty much.
And did you start comedy in Knoxville?
I did not. I started comedy in Wilmington, North Carolina, for the most part, in 2007, technically. That's when I started doing weekly open mics at Nut Street Comedy Room, which was actually just called Nut Street, and it was a Tuesday night open mic in the location that eventually became the comedy club Nut Street Comedy Room in 2009.
Gotcha. And so what led you into comedy in the first place?
I was doing work as an MC for a few different music festivals that I was a marketing coordinator for in Bluffton, Ohio, so Northwest Ohio. I'm originally from Ohio, so I've kind of returned. So yeah, that's where I was having to fill time between bands, and it got a little dry, and it was all factual and informational, and I just decided to make it a little more entertaining because I've always been a fan of Weird Al Yankovic, Dr. Demento, all various comedy stylings. Big Brian Regan fan. From listening to comedy on the radio when I was 12 years old in Southern Ohio, there was a station that actually simulcast on Sunday nights at 6 o'clock, all clean comedians for an hour, all stand-ups. So I got to hear Jerry Seinfeld and Richard Jeni and Richard Wright and, of course, Brian Regan, even some of the early stuff from George Carlin, some of the stuff that was more radio friendly.
Okay, I'm 47, and I remember growing up listening to Dr. Demento a lot on Sundays on the way back from my grandparents' house. We'd crank that up and hear all those old Ray Stevens tunes and all that good stuff. So that's pretty cool. So you heard those clean comics and kind of got interested in it, mixed that in with some of the MC stuff you were doing, and then that eventually led to you writing your own material from that?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first material I wrote was in February of 2006, and I was working in sales for Verizon, so I was making more money than I'd ever made before. So I was throwing myself a birthday party every year, and it was very self-indulgent. So I decided to do stand-up there for the first time ever, and I did 20 minutes. And I actually wrote 20 minutes of material, and I had it on little yellow index cards, and I still have those index cards in that full set written out to this day. I keep it kind of as a memento of sorts.
That's wild, man. So performing at your own birthday party and you cranked out 20 minutes. You wrote it and cranked it out. That's pretty impressive.
And yeah, and sometimes when people do comedy for the first time, they get bit and they're on, but my friends were not very forgiving. They definitely only laughed at stuff that was legitimately funny and shut me down and on the rest of it. So it was a good introduction, unlike the killing it the first time out and then just being delusional. I was kind of given a healthy dose of realism right away. And even friends that were non-comics that I first started that night, there was some chuckles that were like, oh, that was awful.
Yeah. So bad it's funny. That's
Yeah, exactly.
That's great, man. So you did that for a while, and then in Knoxville, you guys had a pretty good scene going there for a little while. And tell me about some of the shows that you guys produced, and did you put on some of those yourself, or were you part of a group of guys that put on shows?
It's a kind of a consortium of people that put on shows. No, you said it was going good for a little while. That sounded too past tense for me. It is going great currently. The only thing that's missing is a comedy club that didn't participate in local comedy community anyway. So it's been going since 2014, but we have gained the manager of that comedy club, Bridget Martin, as a comic in our scene now. So she's been welcomed with open arms to start performing with us, and it's been great to see that. So yeah, it's going good there. The production of shows is pretty widely distributed amongst comics in different areas. Danny Whitson does one at Oak Ridge. J.C. Ratliff produces some shows in the Old City and also at Open Chord in West Knoxville. Shane Ryan runs Rain Shine Comedy, which produces comedy shows at a few different breweries, including Casual Pint in Hardin Valley and Saltworks Brewery closer to downtown. So there's quite a bit going on. It's just not every weekend.
Right. That's cool, man. And you also have a pretty good hand in some comedy festivals. Tell me about, there's two of them, right? The Cape Fear Festival and the Scruffy City?
Yes, the Cape Fear Comedy Festival, my partner in that is Timmy Sherrill, who started Nut Street, the Tuesday night open mic, and then subsequently started Nut Street Comedy Room, which is now Dead Crow Comedy Room. It's had a reincarnation, I suppose, a rebirth in 2014 as Dead Crow Comedy Room. in the building right next to its original location. So,
And what's the scope of that festival? How many shows? How many comics? How many days?
that one has been 4 days since the beginning. So it starts on Wednesday and ends on Saturday, and it varies the amount of comics we have. We've tried to be a little bit more lean this past year, so we're down to about 5 headline acts, and then we had, I believe, 40 comics that included locals and out of towners that performed on various showcases.
That's pretty good amount of comics there. And how was the turnout? How the crowds and how many different venues did you guys do that in? Mainly just the one, or did you have satellite shows?
We used 3 this year, which I was happy with too, because we had used 5 prior, but we had a couple shows last year and prior years where the attendance wasn't where I wanted it to be, which doesn't value anyone. So the comics don't want to be coming in and from out of town and performing for no one. So we streamlined to 3 venues. We used Real Cafe, City Stage, which is a 200-seat old Masonic theater, and then Dead Crow Comedy Room. So all in all, we had about 400 seats to fill, and we ran the shows in a way that the crowd could rotate from one venue to the other because they're all within 4 blocks of each other on the same street.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. And then the other festival, how long have you been working with that one?
Scruffy City, this will be its 3rd year in November. So we started it in 2014. Last year was our 2nd year, and then this is the 3rd.
That's in Knoxville. Gotcha. That's pretty cool. So you're pretty busy with those festivals. I noticed the other day you put out a post about how to get in comedy festivals, which is a question I get a lot, and I've only attended and participated in the Laugh Fest up in Grand Rapids. So, like, I can tell people how I got in that one, but for people that are looking to get into their first festival, especially, I've got the list here. But if you want me to help you run through it and kind of give those tips out again, I thought it was exceptionally written, and if you follow those steps and you're funny, you should have a good chance of getting in a festival. The way I looked at it.
Sure. I would be interested to start with to talk about what you did to get into the Grand Rapids Festival, and I can kind of expound on those points because I think some of them will be the same.
Sure. Well, that was a festival that I saw, for many years, and I knew the guys from Funny Business. I do still do some corporate gigs for them, but back in the day, I used to do every little town up in Michigan that had water in the summer. They had a little bar and they had a little comedy gig going on, and multiple shows all over the country they booked. And so I hadn't done a lot of club work in a while, and I kind of missed hanging out with comics. So I just shot a message over there one day and said, "Hey, what's the process for getting in with the Comedy Fest?" They said, "Well, send us a clip and we'll check it out." And he got back to me fairly quickly and said, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah, someone is just pretty much submit a clip, but you don't have to do a fee or anything like that. I think is that correct?
Yeah, at least I don't remember paying a fee to get in, and that one actually, I got paid to perform.
Yeah, Laugh Fest is kind of the next echelon of comedy festival. The Yoders put on a higher level festival. They have a budget that affords them to be able to do what everybody should be doing eventually with their comedy festival, which is paying all the acts and not having to charge people to submit. But a festival like ours, we still try to we'll bootstrap as much as we can. Basically, comic crowdfund being able to put the event on. But the submission process for many of the festivals that I've run into is very similar. It's very heavily reliant on a good performance video more than anything. A video is probably the most important thing to your comedy career, period. But festivals almost exclusively use video as the way to gauge whether someone is going to be accepted to perform at their festival.
Right. Let's break down like what makes a good video. 'Cause I think you had some great tips on, very specifically, because I think each festival will tell you exactly what they want to see.
I didn't say this in the blog, but I think that after kind of listening to some feedback and stuff, I really believe people shouldn't be submitting open mic performances for comedy festivals unless it's an open mic that just has an amazingly responsive crowd and it is a place where they can get quality, stable non-moving camera video, HD with a perfect audio. Open mics are usually not very conducive to that, and also open mics are pretty uncontrollable. So you'll have, people talking during the set. You'll have lighting be less than desirable. It's the best that the person reviewing your submission can see you. If they can't see you, they can't see your facial expressions, which add to jokes, as you well know. Not to mention other mannerisms, other stuff that would be, show us as reviewers that there was some stage presence. So the quality of the video, a horizontal shot video, it can even be on an iPhone, just as long as the audio is decent. The audio has to be audible. We have to be able to tell what you're saying. We have to be able to hear the crowd laughing. You would think some of these things are kind of givens, but I have gotten dozens of submissions that were shot on an iPhone with someone just holding the camera, shaky, laughing so loud you can't even hear the person telling their jokes because it's their friend holding the camera or spouse. And in the end, I can't tell if they're a good performer or not because I really didn't get to see a very good representation of what their show would be like.
Right. And I think that's important too. Like you mentioned, a set that starts after the MC introduces you. You don't want the MC on the video.
It sounds simple. People that wouldn't review submissions would never think about this. I have so often thought that the MC was the comic submitting.
Yeah.
Because there'll be MCs on these videos sometimes doing a joke and then introducing the person. So I'm like, okay, well, who's this new person coming into the video? Like, well, this other person's already been telling jokes for the first 35 seconds of this video. So don't waste the person's time that's reviewing it. Most of the people reviewing submissions are going to eventually review somewhere in the line of 9 hours to 24 hours of stand-up footage because we watch the videos. That's the only way to be fair. And it's not in your best favor when you're putting stuff in front of your comedy. Just get to the mic and start doing stand-up. Make it audible, make it visible. And, make sure your jokes are hitting. If they're not, you probably don't have a submission video.
Yeah, you don't want the MC getting the gig at the festival and not you from that one joke that they did before your set.
I mean, the MC wouldn't get the gig, but I mean, it still would make us go, well, if he submitted a video too of his own stuff, I'm gonna have seen him twice now, and be like, well, maybe I'll give that guy a shot.
Yeah, and I think too sometimes comics would assume that you would like edit together a sizzle reel of your best stuff, but you would prefer from the time you hit the microphone until the length of the video submission. So if it's 8 minutes, ideally they do an 8-minute set somewhere and send that in, right?
Yeah, I mean, anything over 3 minutes. 3 minutes, I can tell if someone's got it or not. I mean, within 3 minutes, you can. If it's not a storyteller comics will give you longer stuff, and we'll watch, at least a 5 minutes to 8 minutes of that storytelling type style comedy. But 3 minutes, most of the time, you can tell if someone's going to be able to pull off 8 minutes or 12 minutes or something like that. You can tell by their pacing and their writing style, and if they put the thought into what they're doing, if they're working on it, and actively working hard and writing and have a video that's, audible and visually, easy to see. It could be a highlight reel, but most comedy festivals, 95% of them are going to want it to be consistent. A full 6 minutes or a full 8-minute set beginning with your introduction.
Yeah, that makes sense because that's what they're trying to book and line up the show for. And if they can see a full start to finish 8 minutes, I would assume it also help you once you got the comics lined up for the festival, know how to arrange the order of the show based on some material you've seen, right?
Yeah, one of the things I think that comics don't understand about rejections is that when we put together a comedy festival, we try to make it something that's going to appeal to everyone that comes to see the comedy festival. And that typically means that we're going to need a variety of different styles of comedians, different backgrounds. We want some diversity in our lineup, both in the people performing and the styles of comedy that they're performing. And a lot of times people are really good and they would be accepted if we had 50 or 100 spots available, but we only have 30 or 40. They don't make it because there were so many people that were their style of comedy that were slightly better, or, you know, had something that they didn't. And I mean, not, it's a minutia. It's a panel of 4 or 5 people sometimes submit, reviewing these or more. So there could be something very, just a nuance about that person that is appealing to the people reviewing it, and that person's going to get selected as opposed to the person that's a better joke writer but doesn't have a specific stage presence or whatever it is that grabbed the reviewers. So I hate it when people beat themselves up over not making it in, because every comedy festival, for the most part, has a mix of comics. They have to figure out how these comics are going to fit on a show. And if it's a bunch of comics that do one-liners, or a bunch of comics that just do just one style of joke, whether it be more adult, blue and aggressive, or, scientific and kind of nerdy, you can't book a bunch of that same type of comic. You have to diversify it to make the shows richer and fuller and better for the audience. And I think that's something that you can't really tell someone that has submitted, is good, gets booked, paid work, and doesn't make it into the comedy festival.
When they submit the clips, they're probably going to send you in an email a link, or in the form for the comedy festival, put a link in there. And I saw you mentioned something really good, that you don't want to see an ad on YouTube for a minute before you get to the clip of the comic. So
yeah, I mean, I'll be okay with it if it's a video that they put up that has 200,000 views. That's fine. That's fine, because that's made you money, and obviously you're paying to submit. So I'm not going to try to stop anybody from making money. But an ad that's enabled on a video that has 6 views because the 6 people that were reviewing the submission all watched it, that's 30 seconds of our lives we'll never get back, and we'll already have kind of this impression like, oh man, it's that guy.
yeah, you don't be that guy, huh?
Don't be that guy.
And so, some comics, I know for a fact, a lot of them, they can do the comedy, but they're not very tech savvy. So for YouTube, you can go in and click the thing that says monetize, or unclick it. So if you unclick it, there will not be an ad. And
Yeah, and it's not default clicked. So it means someone actively enabled it.
And then, I use Vimeo for stuff like that, because I like it. It's better. It doesn't show a million videos off to the side to distract people when they're watching your video. You can make it unlisted but have a link, or you can make it password protected and provide a password.
Yeah, and I don't. I don't like Vimeo. It's because Vimeo doesn't stream smoothly on a mobile device. So a lot of times we'll watch on tablets, or we'll watch on iPhones or Androids, and Vimeo isn't as smooth of an experience on those devices. There's a lot of buffering that happens if you're not on a strong connection. So Vimeo's fine. I can view it, but Timmy, I know for a fact that Cape Fear hates Vimeo videos. Like, he'll review them, but it's just so inconvenient to sit and watch one buffer, or because they're so high quality. Typically, those are real. They look really good. If you're trying to, do a web series or something, I by all means use Vimeo, but it just doesn't really optimize too well for reviewing submissions.
Yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't really thought about the streaming part of that. And I've got my website videos hosted on Vimeo, because I don't know, I've got a little widget where when I post a video on Vimeo, it automatically uploads it to my video page on my website, so I don't have to go through that process. But with so many people watching on mobile now, that may be.
Well, Vimeo still works for the most part on mobile. You just have to test it on different mobile devices. That's the best recommendation I can give when it comes to using it for your website. Just check it on an iPhone, check it on an iPad, check it on an Android. Make sure, because you never know what a booker's going to use to check her stuff out.
That's true.
They're sitting at the office with their computer up and using their iPad at the same time sometimes.
Well, let's talk about websites for a second, because when you submit to a festival, you're going to send that link, and if you're interested in that person, you're obviously going to go want to find out more about them. What would you recommend for a website Let's start with basic, and then what would be optimal?
Oh, I don't have a problem with people that use Tumblr for their website. That's free. You can do a WordPress site for free. I mean, domain names are so cheap now. They're like $10 or $15 most of the time. So you can attach that to, just about any blog style site. A lot of people I know are using Squarespace now for websites. I think that has a monthly fee attached to it. So it's not the free route. You can do a free Wix site. You don't have, and don't get complex if computers are not for you. Keep it simple. It's a skill set you're best off learning a little bit about. You don't need to spend all your time away from writing jokes and figuring out how to program HTML and graphics and calendars and all that stuff. But just have a landing pad like for your stuff, where you can have a booking video or contact form and headshots. The most important being headshots, high resolution, downloadable headshots for people to use for posters whenever you're performing or headlining or whatever it happens to be. That's very important, and it's not expensive to do it anymore. I mean, it used to be free like Angel Fire days, GeoCity days, and it still is. It's just takes a minute to go online. And this is the number one recommendation I have for anyone that's stuck on that. Just go to YouTube and search how to design my own Wix page or how to design my own WordPress page, and you'll watch a 6-minute video that'll explain it all perfectly.
Yeah, that's great. With the headshots, do you like a straight up headshot? Do you like the comical? Do you like, a lot of people up here in Nashville have the lollipop with the orange background and all the exaggerated features. What makes for a good poster for a comedy festival?
Digital really makes it important that your headshot translate in a square or circular format, because that's what you're going to use for icon Facebook. And then you would have another style that would work for a banner, which is more horizontal as opposed to square or vertical. So vertical is really not helpful ever. That's the best thing to say, is a vertical headshot is going to end up having to be cropped into a square. Like the days of the 8x10 don't have any application to web promotion because people are going to cut that into a square, or they're going to cut it horizontally to use for a Facebook banner. So headshots are best wide, if anything. And I'd recommend not having your headshots centered either, because you could have your headshots set up so that text could be added to the same graphic, or they have room to play with to put something on that side, as opposed to trying to fit text around your head or cut your whole body out. And that may sound complex, but it's just, do headshots that aren't the typical 8x10 format, unless you're intending to print them out and mail them somewhere.
No, I think it's great, because I hadn't thought about that as a smart thing to give you some extra buffer room in there.
And absolutely do your headshot, at least a few of them, on a plain background, either a white or a black or even green screen style background, something that is easy that's a different color than your skin, your hair, your shirt, because then it can be cut out and you can be put into a poster very easily.
Well, that's cool, man. Well, you've given us a lot of good tips today. Let me know where you want me to send people.
You can send them to scruffycitycomedy.com to find out more. It's really become a local comedy portal for Knoxville. So if you're looking for a show in Knoxville, if you're just looking for stage time, or if you want to find out more about the Scruffy City Comedy Festival, we also have our entire city's comedy schedule on there. So
very good, sir.
All right, man. Thanks.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Good luck to you, buddy. So there you go, Matt Ward, with some excellent tips on how to submit your videos and your information to possibly be selected for a comedy festival. Again, check him out at scruffycitycomedy.com, and that'll link to all the information about all the festivals that he's involved with. Very good job, Matt. Thanks for being with us. Again, we were sponsored this episode by Greg Adams, a Patreon sponsor. If you are a Patreon sponsor at that $7 a month level, don't forget we've got our Google Hangout this Saturday from 1 to 2 Central Standard Time. This is kind of our monthly mastermind where we swap ideas out. It's never too late to join that, and it's never too late to join Club 52, which is a 52-week program that's available to people at that same level. This episode is also brought to you by the Clean Comedy Conference, which takes place this year, October 13th through 15th in San Diego, California. There's an adage in stand-up comedy that clean is green, and that means two things. It means, one, that clean plays everywhere, and two, it can lead to some cash. At this conference, you're going to learn about this from professional comedians and bookers such as Eddie Brill, Jimmy Brogan, Charlene May, Amy Pittle, Tony Calabrese, and Scott Wood. And they're going to address how to navigate the challenges of making money as a clean comedian. In addition to working at clean comedy venues, most of these speakers and panelists have written for television and booked clubs, colleges, churches, cruise ships, and late-night TV such as Letterman. So listen up. You want to check this conference out. The theme for this year is Clean Isn't a Dirty Word. Come out and find out for yourself why. Early bird registration ends August 15th, so sign up today at cleancomedyconference.com. And as a thank you to School of Laughs listeners, use promo code School of Laughs for a special $10 discount. Again, go to cleancomedyconference.com for more information today. And lastly, folks, it's time for a quick iTunes review. This one comes in from Bruce Bradford Royal, who says, Rick, I cannot thank you enough for all the work you put into this podcast. I'm just getting started into the world of comedy, and I'm hooked on this. I met you at the Christian Comedy Association a few weeks ago, and I'm glad that I did. I'm finding myself listening constantly, and when I can't sit down for a long duration, I get in as much listening time as I can before life interrupts. Now, I just need to take all that I'm learning from this podcast and put it to work. Thanks again, Rick, for using the gift that you have been given to help other people fine-tune their gift. Hey, thank you very much, Bruce Bradford Royal, for that 5-star iTunes review. I'm happy to share the information, and I'm even more excited when people take that information and put it to use. So I hope you find time to do that and keep me abreast of all your success as you proceed. If you're listening and you're able to leave us an iTunes review, it means the world to me when you do that, and it keeps me fired up. And, of course, I'll read it right here on the air. Thanks again for listening. I'll talk to most of you next week and a few of you this Saturday, July 16th, on our Google Hangout. Have a great weekend, guys.
Thanks for listening to the School of Laughs podcast. If you'd like to hear more School of Laughs podcasts, you can find them on iTunes and Stitcher.com. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. For information on upcoming live and online classes, visit schooloflaughs.com. Until next time, stay tuned, stay focused, and stay funny.